Richard Hendrix joins us now. Richard is out in Fort Worth, where he'll be on the ESPN call of the American Athletic Conference Tournament involving UAB. We'll touch some on that. First of all, how are you, Richard? You good?
Doing great, guys. Doing great. Hey, it's March, so I always love this time of the season. It's the best time when it's conference tournament time, so I'm excited.
That's right. I'm sure you do. So let's talk about mindset of teams going into the SEC tournament, because it is common for fans to say, "Oh, I wouldn't mind if we get out early and get focused for the NCAA tournament." You've played in these things. You're already shaking your head no. Why do coaches and players not think that way?
It's a loser's mentality, first off. I think in anything that you're in, you should want to try to win the game. I mean, you got an opportunity to play for a championship. I can remember in 2008 when I played in the SEC tournament, Georgia was one of the last place teams in the league. We had a tornado that hit the Georgia Dome when I was playing in that game, and Georgia was able to run off, I believe, 4 wins in 3 days to make the NCAA tournament. That group can look back at this and say that they are SEC champions after being one of the worst teams in the league all season long. This is an opportunity that you have new life and you have a moment to be able to do so, to be a champion. And Auburn was able to win the regular season, but you got another 15 teams that have an opportunity to win.
So now, in opposed to having to win 4 straight, you got to win 5 straight if you're one of these guys, one of these 8 teams playing today. Do you see any of these 8 teams that could make a deep run? I'm not saying win this tournament in Nashville, but any of these teams that can make a deep run?
Well, I think obviously you have strong teams throughout the entire league, but the team that I've looked at, the team that's not going to be playing on the first couple of days or has the double bye is Kentucky. Kentucky is a team that obviously in the SEC tournament, they will come loaded with Big Blue Nation in Nashville. That will create a home court advantage. But they started to get healthier. Now, Jackson Robinson had a wrist injury. I believe he had surgery. He'll be out. But Lamont Butler seems to be getting a little bit healthier. And the reality about their team throughout the course of this season was that they were beat up all year long. Maybe not the conference record that people would expect from the Wildcats, but when you get healthy at the right time, you have the revenge factor that they would have, particularly getting to play Alabama if they're able to win their first game. They've beaten you twice. Then they can start to get some momentum to make a push. That's, of course, outside of those top teams that we all see in the top 5 nationally.
My co-host on the basketball show, Taylor Korn, says Arkansas would be the toughest opponent for Auburn in their first game. And we made a point because of when they lost Boogie Fland, their perimeter defense really good, and they did a good job at Neville guarding the Auburn guards. How does that change? How did Arkansas change when they lost one of the more dynamic players?
Well, a lot of times when you do lose a player, everyone else picks up their level of play because you don't have to be concerned if you're going to be coming out of the game. You also know that the team will need your production and statistical output. So it allows players to be a little bit more comfortable. Arkansas has been a team that hasn't shot the ball well this season, but physically, this is a team that can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the league athletically. I look at the top side of that back bracket, and I say with Auburn, Arkansas, Ole Miss, potentially Tennessee, Texas A&M. That's going to be the physical side of this bracket. Those are the teams that have the ability to ground and pound. They can be tough under the boards, not necessarily high-octane offensive teams, but that's going to be the half that's going to be a slugfest. You go to the bottom with Kentucky and Alabama and Florida, Missouri. Those teams like to get up and down and score points in bunches. The question's going to be which type of style is going to allow you to sustain in the SEC tournament. Having that type of style that can play finesse, or is the power ball going to help? I think Auburn obviously got worn out last year, struggled in that NCAA tournament game. I would lean towards the teams that can get point production without having to grind it out. If they can continue to shoot the ball well, then in this tournament, it'll help you for the long run.
Boy, he makes it sound like the day games will be Band-Aids and the night games will be Powerades.
It quite possibly could be. I mean, you're talking about teams that can play at slower paces. Arkansas is going to crash the offensive glass. Texas A&M will do the same. Tennessee will grind you out defensively and just smother you. Auburn has the ability to play both ways, but we've seen Florida, we've seen Alabama, Missouri. They're trying to score 100 points, as well as Kentucky. And that type of style, I think, will be a little bit more entertaining to the people who are there checking out those games. But it's going to be about which one of those styles will allow you to prevail over this 5-day stretch of tough games.
Richard Hendrix is with us. You'll see him on ESPN this weekend for the American Tournament. He is also on the SEC Network. He is with us on the Alexander Shinora Trial Attorney Hotline. As we continue to talk about the SEC Tournament, we brought this stat up, Richard. The top 3 rebounding teams in the Southeastern Conference are Alabama, Florida, and Texas A&M. And Auburn is 1-3 against those teams that get out-rebounded in each of those losses. You don't run up against teams that rebound. You don't run up all the time against teams that rebound like that. But how big of a concern is that once you enter – they could play Texas A&M, we just mentioned it, or even once you enter the NCAA Tournament?
Well, I think the important thing is to look a little deeper into what kind of rebounds are they and when are they getting them at certain points of the game. I don't really, as a person who is a rebounder, I don't count these empty, non-contested rebounds that people get. I don't even think they should count it in the professional ranks. When you see no one crashing to O boards and it's just one guard getting a rebound and starting the break. So if you look into it, Alabama oftentimes is at their best offensively when they can get multiple shots at it. With their offensive rebounding. Texas A&M is another one that's going to crash. Auburn's just going to have to make sure to limit those rebounds and not allow them to get those multiple times at it on the offensive set, because if you make those teams execute and score with one shot, and particularly if you can make teams score longer in the shot clock, the percentages go down for them to be able to convert. Auburn's been struggling, as you mentioned, as of late. I don't know if it's going to be something as a matter of injuries or just fatigue, but they have the personnel that can regroup. They're a strong team. They played good basketball all season long, and I look for them to try to find some type of energy and bounce back after the last loss they had to Alabama.
Auburn, Duke, Houston locked in as 1 seeds, that final 1 seed. If it's Alabama, Florida, or Tennessee cutting the nets down on Sunday, is that your final 1 seed?
It would be for me. I think Florida, as of right now, has done enough to deserve that number 1 seed. But I think Alabama's big win that they had on the road in Auburn was something that really brought them into this conversation to get back on the 1 line. They slipped up in these last 6 games that they had against these top teams to really solidify that earlier. But Florida has shown that they're a really good team. They've not had the challenge of other teams in the non-conference earlier this year. But their ability to play both ways, what I mean by that, they can get up and run, they can post you up with Alex Condon, they can power ball you with Ruben Chinyelu, Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, Will Richard are 3 of the best guards in the entire country. And they're older, they're veterans, they're seniors. Those 3 guards will be huge down the stretch of the season. But if Alabama or Tennessee can get it done because of the quality wins they will pick up, I think that the SEC Tournament champion should deserve a slot on that 1 line.
Texas A&M doesn't play until tomorrow. Man, we talk so much about the 4 teams that have the double byes. We've talked about Cal so much this year at Arkansas. We've talked so much about Kentucky, Missouri's resurgent. I don't feel like we've talked anything at all season long about Texas A&M, and they've been right there in the top 15 all year.
Been right there, and that's what it is when the strength of this. Ole Miss is another team that no one talks about that's been in the top 25, and they've just fallen out recently. That's a dangerous team with some veteran players. But you're right. I mean, Texas A&M, they have struggled to get it done. To me, they win some games that they shouldn't. They beat teams like Auburn's, but it's when they drop the games against the teams that are in the middle of the pack that has held them back from being in that upper echelon of the SEC in recent years. But Wade Taylor IV, really good player. He can fill it up in bunches. The physicality of those guys, Coleman under the boards, Anderson Garcia, they have bigs that can definitely make a difference in the game. The question is, in this type of tournament, when you have so many high-quality games, how will having good bigs and big depth and their ability to be able to bounce back from the physicality, how long can you sustain that? It's a different brand of basketball now. It's not the days where I played when everybody's posting up and crashing the offensive glass. But I'll tell you, when you play that way, it takes a toll. You have to be able to get some production in the outside. I always think this time of the year will be about the guards, and Texas A&M has some top guards.
All right, before you go, I'm going to ask you 2 Alabama X and O questions to pick a much smarter brain than I have. Derrion Reid, Jim just mentioned that Nate Oates hinted that he could be back for this tournament. He has not played since the February 15th game at home against Auburn, so it would be a full month since he has played if he does play on Friday. If he can give you quality minutes, what does that do for this Alabama team?
It's huge. It gives you depth. It gives you an elite level athlete who is able to switch on so many different players defensively. It's a luxury that you know that you can go into your toolbox if something goes wrong. The issue he will have being a freshman, how much type of rust will he have, and will the environment be too much? But anytime you're adding length and athleticism, it helps you out defensively with defensive rebounds, ending possessions, being able to guard multiple positions. And it also allows them to put some of the weaker defenders on some weaker players. You look at some players like Mark Sears, where you need his point production. Now, when you have another defender that can take on those primary assignments, you can put him in different positions, and that will benefit them tremendously.
All right, X&O question number 2. If you got a version of Grant Nelson like you got Saturday, which of the other 4 positions would that most help for Alabama?
Oh, it definitely helps Mark Sears.
That was my answer.
It helps the guard position. Because to me, Grant Nelson is the X factor. Whenever he plays well, Alabama wins. What that does is they don't guard him when he shoots 3-pointers on the outside. He has a set shot. He has a different type form, kind of shoots from the side of his head, takes his time with that, and they don't respect it. When you see when he hits 2 threes or so early in the game, now that opens up things for driving lanes for others because the defense has to respect him on the perimeter. He showed some toughness in the Auburn game. That big bucket that he showed on that post-up move against Janai Broome when I believe it was 77 all was the best bucket I've seen him. Forget all the dunks, forget all of the threes. That type of physicality is what you have, and he has the versatility to post up, be strong on the boards, and if he can hit outside shots, it's huge. And now we're only talking about one side of the ball, because if he plays well defensively, you got a rim protector, a guy who can switch on guards and clear out the possessions with rebounds. He's going to be the difference maker if Alabama can make a deep run. And if he can play at his top, just like he did last year in the NCAA tournament, then Alabama can make another deep run.
What kind of shot do AK and UAB have in the tournament you'll be calling the American out in Fort Worth?
No, I think they have a really good chance. Now, I will say this. Penny Hardaway in Memphis has been playing really good basketball. That's a team that I don't think gets the credit that they deserve. They should have been a little bit more of a higher considered team to be in the top 10 all season long. But what they perceive as the strength of the American Conference has not worked in their favor. But UAB is a strong team. Yaxel Lindeborg is a very physical player, has a nice feel to the game, and understands how to facilitate for his teammates. They have great guard play that can get it. Jabori is a really good shooter from the outside. He's been playing really good basketball. If he can continue to shoot it from the outside, he's going to be a big factor for this team. But they have a chance. And obviously, if you know Andy Kennedy and what he did in the SEC, coming in at Ole Miss in his first year, I was there. Won the West, wins the SEC, I believe around 2012 in the tournament. When you have a coach who can do that, particularly at a program like Ole Miss, who's only been to the NCAA tournament, this being their 10th time ever, you can't count him out. They won the tournament last year. Lindeberg was the MVP, went to the NCAA tournament, went to the NIT recent years. So the Blazers are a team to watch out for, and I think everyone in this tournament is concerned with them.
All right, you'll see Richard on that tournament on ESPN from the American, and his thoughts as well on the SEC Network on the SEC tournament. So he's a busy man right now. Richard, thank you very much for the time. Enjoy the stay in Fort Worth.
Thank you, guys.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon. Richard Hendrix with us on the Alexander Shinara Trial Attorneys Hotline.